Good morning. Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. This is a conservative leaning podcast, but I do take both sides of an issue and examine it. I get these issues from both sides of the spectrum of news, from the right and then from the left. And I use common sense, the Constitution, our laws, and issues that do not fall into the Constitution, then they can be explored by states. And I'm all about the state right rules, federal rules. It's what we go by here, folks. And like it, hate it, that's how our system works. And what's beautiful about our system is we can change it. We can make certain changes in our laws and how we do things, and that's very important. And a steadfast. Again, I state we are not a democracy in the sense of a democracy. We are a republic with democratic principles. Huge, huge difference. Today's show, I'm going to be speaking about the redistricting. I'm not a fan of it. I understand, it can help the Republicans or it can help the Democrats. I get that. And I think if it wasn't flawed by the census, I'd say just leave it alone. It works. But it's flawed by the census. And we can't have that. We have to have a standardized census. And that makes sense since we're being inundated with people that should not be here. They shouldn't be counted in the census for the purposes of voting. You could list them as people being here, and that's fine. And I understand the flip side to the issue of using the census is that many illegals didn't partake in the census. But the census went further than that because it went into people in schools and driver's licenses that didn't ask this question of citizenship. So there was a lot of pitfalls and games that both sides could play with. I'm not saying one side over another side, both sides. I said I would try to be as unbiased as I can, but certainly we've seen the Democrats try to use this to their advantage, and then we see the Republicans then ratchet it up. And, that's a dangerous place to be. Not a good idea, folks. Now, the redistricting of states, and being allowed to do that, really changed because of the Supreme Court ruling in regards to the Voting Rights Act of 1964, which was, I was alive then. I know what was going on. And if people were screaming it was bad law back then because you took away one person, one vote. And it really comes down to that. And how they redistrict lines and broke lines because they said, well, minorities can never get a step up over here, so we're going to give them their own district. We're going to make that a special district and then a district, and then, they can elect their own people in their own area. And I always thought of that as being, well, now you're all for segregation, right? Because you're saying that those people are in that area and that's it. So what has happened in many districts is what they call regentification. Harlem, which was 95% black at one time. And if you look into how Harlem became, it's interesting, but read up on it. It was because of excessive housing built. So, but just so you know. And then the whites moving back into those areas and changing the makeup. And the states, and everyone started saying, hey, we need new lines here. And the lines could only be drawn after the census, which only happens once every 10 years. The Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. It's not right. The states can redraw their lines as they see fit. And whatever is voted for, but you must follow your state's rules. Remember, under the Constitution, states have the right on how elections are to be handled in their states, which is good. I mean, the Constitution didn't want to have that type of power. And people worried, and that's part of the 10th Amendment, but worried about an overreach of the federal government. So they allow states to do this. And set things up and how polling places and how, times and how that all works. The problem that happened was that then the state's constitution has to be changed, and this is the problem that Virginia is facing. They had a vote where they, pushed it through and put it out to the voters real quick and did things, but they didn't follow their state constitution. Not saying that had they followed the state constitution, this would certainly be, to me, upholdable. You could do it. But since it did not follow the guidelines of their state constitution of such action, can't do it. Can't do it. And the state, saying, well, we did it and we did it this way and yeah, okay, we didn't do it here. Any part of it not followed, null and void. So will will it be done correctly? I'm sure it will be done correctly in the next bite. Will it be done in time for 2028 or 2026? Who knows? 2026 states that are definitely going to be in this is Louisiana, which had just allowed, the court said, since there's been a change, you can change your primary dates. But, you're going to have hard dates. But they were doing early voting, which is, I hate early voting. It should not be allowed except in the cases of a mail-in ballot where you're going to be out of town at those dates in November or wherever. You can make the formal request, not a blanket mail out to anyone. It is your duty as a citizen to show up and vote. And there are exceptions, of course, for the armed forces, those infirmed, that they can vote, but they have to request it. You just can't say, well, we're just going to blanket out to everyone. No, no, that's not what that was there for. Now, in saying that, if a state constitution has that in there where they allow in the legislation, legislators of that state say, we just blanket mail it out to everyone. If you want to show up, but we know and we make sure people aren't double voting. Then you should, it could be allowed. And the states can do that. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's what the founders were thinking about at the time. But, well, things change. And I get that you can have it. If the state allows it, that's it. As long as it doesn't conflict with federal. Of course, as I always say, federal rights filter down. So you can't have a state that says, hey, we want to bring slavery back. And, our people voted for it. No, you just can't do that. Because federal rights overrule state rights. Except those that are not mentioned in the Constitution. You get an argument over the supremacy clause in the Constitution, and then game on. You take that to the Supreme Court. Good luck with that. So you have states like Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama that are going to redo their districting. And you have states like New York, New Jersey, Colorado, and I think Mississippi that are planning to do it in time for the 2028 elections. It's if the states can do it, the states can do it. Now, there is a lot of race baiting by the media. I mean, this is going to, this is meant to get blacks out of politics. It's this. No, it's not. It is meant so that people in areas have a voice. And you can't create a district just to have a voice. Sorry, you just can't do that. And you can be a Democrat and you can be a Republican. You get Democrats that go to your agenda, but you can't go by race to say this race has more of a voice than the other race. You just can't have it. You can have Democrats, liberal, communists, whatever you want. Go have those people, have those races, and when I say race, political races. But you can't use a person's race as a means of them voting. It goes against the Constitution. So the Supreme Court said, yeah, we kind of understood what they were trying to do then, but you can't do it. In that instance, I mean, equal protection and all that is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And being able to stop, people from being unable to vote changes nothing. This changes nothing about a person's ability to vote. Now, you could say, having proof of citizenship. Well, that's not hard to do, folks. And it's been proven. And the Democrats have gotten off that because they were embarrassed on their stupidity and their bold-faced lies that they got called out on. And it's race baiting by the media. It's race baiting by Jeffries. It's race baiting by Schumer. It's race baiting. And it should not be allowed. The media should not be race baiting because they're false claims. It's false claims. And no matter which way you try to spin it, it's lies. So if you get a black candidate who is a Republican, is that, or a black candidate that is a Democrat and can get the Democratic vote, why can't you do that? Why can't you have a Hispanic? Why can't you have a Muslim? Why can't you? And we do have that. But you can't set up special districts so you can load the House with these people. You have district lines, and that's it. And those district lines are set. You cannot make special district lines and carve-outs just for race or religion or anything in that context. You cannot do that. And that's why the redistricting is going on. I don't like it. Again, I say, it can be gamed by both parties. If you have a Republican-led legislators, they could ram in whatever they want. If you have a Democratic legislators, they could ram in what they want. It's when they don't walk the line to say we represent everyone. And that is the problem that I see in politics today. You are there to represent everyone. When you win, you represent everyone in your district. You represent everyone in your state. The president represents every single person, citizen in the United States. Our laws cover the other people. So that's what I'm talking about today, and that's been about 12 minutes of redistricting. The other things I'm going to talk about today, and since I know some interesting facts coming out about the Biden DOJ and what they did. We're going to hear about Biden forever, folks, because it was that bad and will affect us for 20 years, 30 years down the road. I'm going to talk about this idea of the, democratic socialism compared to socialism. So I'm going to talk about that. And that's going to be talked about a lot. And then I'm going to talk about a state issue that has come up. But it's interesting because that idea can affect everyone now. And that is a judge's ruling that a JAG, Judge Advocate General's Office, which is the legal side of the military, can try a civilian case in a state court in Minnesota. Because the judge said it was allowable under the law. Now, I'll tell you what that is later on, but I'm kind of sketchy on it, and we've gone down this road before, and it's interesting, but it could become, a bit of a overstep of the federal government. And like I said, I try to be fair. I try to look at it and see how it ties into the good book. If it's allowed, it's allowed. But we'll discuss that. So we're done now with the race baiting lies of the Democrats over redistricting. So the Biden DOJ pushed policies to eliminate statutory protection for religious Americans that interfered with his policy goals. So what he did, he had the Department of Justice go out. Remember, they went after PTA parents. The FBI went out if you disagreed with the PTA and the PTA goes, oh, I feel threatened because that guy said I'm not going to send my child here. What are you doing? And they automatically were then reviewed by the FBI. A little crazy there. Although the Department of Justice and Biden failed to change federal law under his direction, federal agencies used policies and regulatory means to accomplish the same goals. And this is, again, people in power. That's the way that works. The Biden Justice Department had aggressively opposed concerned parents through the Garland School Board memo and diligently attempted to use its enforcement authority against parents who defended their children's safety at local school board meetings. Not that their safety was in question at school board meetings, but at school board meetings, they questioned the safety of their children. This came in to when they were talking about same-sex bathrooms, gender identification, and personal identifications. I'm not John. I want to be called, Bender the robot. And the teachers have to then go, well, all right, you classify yourself as Bender the robot. I'm Mittens the cat. And parents were going, hey, I don't want my child going into a bathroom, that they're in third grade, and we have eighth graders in that class, in that school, that are using those same bathrooms that my, 9-year-old's in. And you got a 14-year-old there. I don't want that. A 14-year-old boy that says, I'm a girl today, I'm going to go in there, or the locker room. And then this spilled over into girls' sports. Boys can be, that identify as a girl can play in girls' sports. This is the craziness that was going on. And the Biden administration immediately mandated the adoption of gender ideology throughout the federal government, far beyond the Supreme Court's ruling on Bostock versus Clayton County. So, and this is a report coming from federal watchdog agencies that, under Trump, that is bringing this out to light. So, it's interesting to see this all coming out. And we knew this was coming out because Trump ran his election on saying, I'm going to expose this. And he has. I'm sorry, I need my coffee. It's 10 in the morning here. And I've been up since 7-something. Doing my work, finding stories that affect all of us. This affects all of us, and that's what my show is basically about. Bringing things, not that affect us on a state level, because you got people that do that, but all over. And when I think that things that are happening in certain states are going to spill over onto a federal level, then my ears perk up. Because I like to have a separation between the federal government and my state. As long as they don't collide, like I said before. If it collides, federal status always prevails. Always. There's no doubt about it. Now, if you want to look up what Bostock versus Clayton County, look it up. I'm not going to sit here and read case law to you. All right. And that was real quick. That was a real quick look at, stuff that's coming out about Biden. We're not even talking about other things, code words that he had. That's next week's show. Okay. There's a lot of talk, and you see it all over, about democratic socialism. Oh, it's different. It's different than socialism. And I say patooey on that. It's like saying, well, hold it. I have skin cancer, but that cancer is different than another form of cancer. Cancer is cancer. Its base root is, something going abnormal to what is currently there. And that's socialism, folks. Socialism is a political and economic ideology that seeks collective ownership of a means of production, distribution, and exchange. And here's how democratic socialism wants to bind itself. Democratic socialism, on the other hand, is a branch of socialism. Liver cancer versus colon cancer. They're both cancers that integrate democratic principles. Democratic principles. Now, we have democratic principles in our Constitution that specify what the government can do and what the government can't do. And into the pursuit of social and economic equality. So, the ones in power dictate to you what their social and democratic values are. Not the book, but who's ever sitting there. Now, if you want to know what you hear all this, it's an affront to our democracy. He's trying to take our democracy away from us. No, Trump is not. Not at all. Who's trying to take the democracy away from you, you morons, are the people that you're supporting by saying, no, now you're going to listen to me. Now you listen to me. Because when I control your food, when I control your industry, when I control your job, once you put me in power, if you don't keep me in power, you don't have a job, you don't have the food, you don't have the housing. You have nothing. How's that? So you do what I want to do, you stay where you are. That's what democratic socialism is. It's not even mob rule. Democratic socialism is what you're fighting. No kings. Hear ye, let it go out throughout the land. This is what is now going to happen. That's democratic socialism. You people are so stupid that believe in it. Stupid, naive. Or you just hate our system and you go, I'll take that system. Because you don't know that the system that you're living in right now is protecting you from being swallowed. And instead, you willingly walk into the mouth of the serpent. That's how silly you people are. Is the idea of social democracy. We have representatives that are voted in, that act in our stead. When you get these people in there, they ain't never leaving because they could change the rules. Their game, their rules. Where in a republic, we have the rules. We have the system in place that keeps those rules. Everyone plays nice in the sandbox. You can challenge it. Like I said, you can challenge it. You can change it. But the Bill of Rights can't be changed, folks. Bill of Rights cannot be changed. And what social democracy, democratic principles, and they're just principles because they can expand. That's my idea today. My idea tomorrow might be much further to the left. The idea that the media is selling this and they're hyping it and the Democrats are getting on board on this in a huge way is dangerous to what people call democracy. We have a democracy in the sense that we have a republic that sets the rules up on that democracy. This social democratic socialism is not democracy. It is not democracy, folks. Because it's not even mob rule. Once you put those people in power, they can change how they get back into power. Or get out of power. And you scream about no kings. I don't understand this lunacy. And people, and it was very, very cleverly done. Because they don't teach civics anymore in school. They don't teach history in school. And it's our history. And it doesn't have to be accurate history. It's our history. And you teach them the principles of freedom. And were we always correct with it? No, we are not. But we had the mechanism in place to correct it. And we still have the mechanism in place. It gets tweaked. The idea of democratic socialism is dangerous to our way of doing things. And you go, well, we're going to change it. No, you're not changing it. You're hijacking it. And under your socialist, democratic ideas, is people will not be able to change that. because you'll take that away by saying, oh, it takes away from public or cooperative owners hip of key industries while maintaining civil liberties. You really think so? Who's maintaining what civil liberties? We already have that. But under socialist, democratic mechanisms, that will go away. That will go away. And you'll only be able to have multi-party elections that they agree on. And democratic institutions that they say, oh, you're a capitalist. You can't. Nope. Can't do that. Has to be cooperative. Has to be owned by the people. And so you take a little bit further depth into it. And what they lie about is the Democratic Social aims to achieve social justice and economic equality. That's taking away from me and giving it to someone else, just so you know. Through a democratic processes. They're democratic. Yeah, we're going to make a law that says I take from you. You know, you gotta put these people in your house, or you have to give your property next door to you that you own, that's, bigger than an acre. You can have your half acre. You have to give it to the state so that they could build someone that could live next to you. That is what they want. That is their goal. And this is why voting is so important. I'm a Republican. I want all Republicans to go out there. I want them to shake the tree and get people out there to vote and go, if you're for losing all your rights and having people tell you what you can do with your home, with your property, with your money, with everything that you've earned, then fine. Vote for those people. But if you're not and you're a Democrat, you better vote Republican. Because this is what is going down with your party. All right. Going to speak a little bit on a case in Minnesota, the land of fraud, soon to be replaced by California as being land of fraud, soon to be replaced by Illinois, the land of fraud, Colorado by the land of fraud, New York and New Jersey, cousins of that, Virginia. You're going to see it, folks. It's coming, and it's coming hard. But in Minnesota, a individual is charged with attacking a Customs and Border officer during one of their demonstrations. Mr. Paul Johnson is charged. So, not being alleged, he is charged. Different than being alleged. With attacking a Customs and Border officer, physically causing harm. The case normally would be tried by the state of Minnesota versus Paul Johnson, because this was an assault and then further federal charges could be levied against him because it was a federal officer. But you can get two bites of the apple here. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like that. But so what has happened? They say, well, we want to try him in federal court, but we're going to try him in state court, but we want it. The prosecuting attorney, to come from the military side of the government, JAG, Judge Advocate General's Office. Now, normally, that for the military to go after a civilian, there are ways they can do this. Treason and things of that, insurrection. So, President Trump has invoked the Insurrection Act and going after a Custom and Border officer is a federal offense, of course, and as such, the administration has said that we want a JAG officer to try this case. And the attorney representing Mr. Johnson, whoa. No. The case can go to trial. We understand that. That's fine, on a state level. Even on a federal level, but normally you would use a federal prosecutor. Why aren't you using a federal prosecutor and going down this road? And, why a JAG officer? And they said, the attorney has stated, he said that is goes against the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. And if you look at that, it clearly states that, you can't use the military against the civilian unless, now those laws have been activated. So we can't. And a judge in Minnesota said, I might not like it, but the law is the law. And this can be pursued in this manner. It's interesting because if you read it, there's a lot of contrary exceptions to the rule of a Posse Comitatus. And that was done in 1878 during the period of Reconstruction of the South. So you have to remember that for years, the federal government oversaw some states. Those states were back in the Union, but they were run by the government, by the federal government. Martial law and things of that sort. And so you had military tribunals, you had military direct intervention into the civilian population, which you needed certain laws and certain rights by the federal government to be looked at and laws made to allow such action. And in there, again, had a list of things, the do's and don'ts and can'ts and won'ts, but then contrary conflictions to that. So at a blush of looking at it, you'd say, no, you can't do that. That state didn't succeed. That state isn't having to be run by the federal government because of, the treasonous acts. But you have to read further into the law and through the exceptions. And what this now means is that, in theory, this can happen in other states. And opens the door. And I think that we got to be real careful with that. And, you could sit back and go, well, that guy hit a customs officer, screw him, he gets charged. And yeah, no one is saying that he doesn't get charged. It is how the case is being prosecuted. It opens a lot of things. So I'm not too certain about how that's going to work. I'm going to look at it more. I was just reading about it. It was an interesting blurb that came out. And I said, again, I'm for issues that happen in states that can have an effect on all of us. This is one of them. And I'm not so sure. Because I want to know why a JAG officer. Why not a federal prosecutor? We got them, and we don't have a shortage of them. I'm just interested in knowing why. Because military law, in certain instances, is a lot different than, I'm not even going to say, like civil laws, but I just want to know why. So, and the process for that. Another little tidbit that was facing the news. I'll just Dan Bongino gave an interview on Fox where he says he's worried about federal prisoners and things coming after him for his actions taken against them. And if the Democrats get back in office, they'll weaponize the Department of Justice and then bring charges against him and put him into prison where, he could be in danger. And I look at that and I'm like, all right, that might be sounding the bell a little early, but his feelings was, look what they did to President Trump when they got back into power. So, what is Dan Bongino? I mean, I would say that the president could give him a pardon immediately against federal, and you don't need it. Did he ask the president for a pardon? And the question would be, why would you need a pardon? Well, as a safety of this going off, which has been used by the Biden administration. And mind you, and I said I'll bring up the facts, also used by the Ford administration to protect President Nixon when he left office. Now, the pardons, given the perpetrators under Nixon, didn't protect anyone from state charges. In the District of Columbia, where, we all know what we're talking about. All right? So, when pardons start being handed out like that, it gets loosey-goosey as it goes down longer, because now Biden opened it up to really, really amazing, amazing status. And so no one, the Democrats can't scream and yell because if Trump goes, I'm going to give Dan Bongino one right now. I'll sign it. It's already signed in my drawer. I just haven't presented it yet. So if something happens to me, boom, 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 I already got a list in the drawer. They get opened and those people get blanket immunity for anything done while in, a certain date. Not get out of jail free card forever, for future violations. So I just found that to be interesting. Read up about it. And, it was on a Fox interview, and you can go and look at it. And, I looked at it, and I'm like, I get it. Kash Patel that could happen to. That could happen to anyone. But I get it. And since, on the flip side, what happened to Comey, it might be something that, people would look at. Now, Comey got a pardon, but he's being brought up on charges of stuff that happened after the pardon was given, which does not count. So, interesting stuff. All right, this is 51 minutes. I was going to make this short. I only wanted 35 minutes today, but of course, I love hearing myself speak. Again, if you made it this far, folks, please leave a comment. I've been getting some good comments from people. I get comments that guys don't see, but they're good comments, and I answer them in the same way, and I answer them in a manner that does not go up on my YouTube account or my Rumble account, which I've been lacking on because Rumble's a pain in the butt to upload into or to do live, at least from my switcher and my encoder. Does not like Rumble. So, I go out and spend $30 a month so I could just take one stream and multi-stream it? I might do that. And again, this show's not monetized, so I don't make anything. Who's going to pay to listen to some stupid fat guy behind a microphone? I mean, they did for Rush Limbaugh, but, the only thing I have in common with Rush Limbaugh is I talk into a microphone. That's it. I get it. I'm not even close to Anthony Cumia on ABC on Sundays. You can listen to him on ABC New York. Go onto their website. He is national if it's broadcast in your locality. Anthony Cumia, Sundays 8 to I think 11 p.m. On Sunday nights. It's a great show. Extremely conservative, and but with common sense. That's the difference. That's where I'd like to go. Common sense. It's what we need. We don't need people screaming. We don't need, and I don't even care if you're civil and you're bringing up facts, not emotions. You could have blue hair, no hair, long hair, short hair. Don't care. I don't care if you're a gay, trans, not, whatever. Don't care. Doesn't impact me. So if you're logical and you bring facts and you want to debate using facts, not emotions, I'm all for you. But absolutely, I'll stand. I absolutely, you're right to have your opinion and be heard. If you select the media to be heard, you can't shout into the window of my house. But you could certainly stand on a public street corner on a box, and as long as you're not trying to hurt anyone or, you know, cause a civil disturbance by doing it, which is, again, what's a civil disturbance? If you don't agree with me and you go, well, I want to riot because of that. Well, okay, you got to stop talking. No, the guy that says I'm going to riot, he gets hauled off. So that's free speech. And really, free speech is just protection from the government, not an employer, not an ABC, not a Jimmy Kimmel. Though I do say that using the stick of the FCC against a Jimmy Kimmel, you're not being prosecuted. He's not being arrested by the FCC or charges going forward against ABC. Jimmy Kimmel might be charges where we pull your license at ABC because you agreed to all that. To be a broadcaster, if you want to do that, you have to agree to the FCC rules and regulations. Free speech might not be so free on the public airwaves. And that's why a Fox News, a CNN, a Breitbart, The Beast, they can get away with so much of that because they're not on the public airwaves. They're not. And thus they don't fall under a lot of those headings. Now, one day they might, but as of yet, and again, that's where the federal government then comes in and goes, well, that's, we control this. I mean, it's something that we have to think about, folks, and be careful of. Because it might stop me from doing my little gig here. And I go, well, I'm a conservative. Well, if social Democrats get in, then they might go, no, that's subversive. No, it's not. Well, yeah, you're talking against our agenda. That's subversive. See, you don't get that with this. But if I was under a government agency run by the FCC, you bet I could fall underneath there. Because that's what I agreed to be able to do it. I know full well what I go into. And it's different when you have people go, that remember those commercials, PSAs, this is not the stance of this company, nor the broadcasters, blah, 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 and they separate themselves from it. But we're allowing the public, because it's public airways, to have their viewpoint that we look at and we go, okay, that's not a horrible viewpoint, but you're allowed to have it. Equal time. So, got to be careful with that. All right, this is going now 1 hour. Enough. I can go all day. All right, everyone, be safe, be well. Please give to a charity if you can. If you're not interested in giving to a charity, please think about giving to a local food bank. They always need food. They always need a little cash donation to help them with situations that are facing them at that direct moment. Please say a prayer. Prayer does matter no matter what a Democrat says. Unless there's something breaking or going on crazy, I'll see you all Monday, and we'll go from there. So, everyone, be well, be safe, as I fade to black.